Okay, the first question
Yes.
is, do you like Russia? And you have only two ways of answer, yes or no. If you choose yes, we will start our interview. Or if you choose no, we'll stop our interview. It's like in your books.
Yes, yes, the answer is yes.
Okay, so, do you think being a writer is a pleasure or really hard work for you?
Most of the time it's very nice and I really like it, but sometimes when I get stuck in writing it can be very difficult, and if I get stuck for a long time I start to panic, and that's not a good place to be in, but most of the time it's really fun.
Okay, have you ever written for adults, or your audience is only small children, teenagers?
I've written one book for adults. That was my first book, which was only short stories, very strange short stories. I wrote it when I was 26 and nobody wanted to publish it. I walked between every publisher in Iceland and everybody said no. And then I decided to publish it myself, and I learned a lot from that. And so when I got my first idea for a book for children, I could tell them, see, I made a book, I told you I was going to make a book, I did it. So now can I make another one? And then they said yes.
And that was not your first book, no?
The first book, yeah, that was the first book, the short story collection, yeah. That was the only one I haven't written for children. But I've written, 10 other for children.
What do you like more in creating your book? To write a text or to imagine a story?
I think getting the idea, because sometimes when I'm writing a book, I get an idea for another book, and I get really excited about that idea, but then I know I have to finish this book first, and sometimes that's like, no, I wanna do this, but then it's can be a little bit frustrating to finish the
first book. And
exactly. So getting the idea is always fun, to get a good idea.
What is it like to be an author nowadays? Because now children like internet or video games.
Yeah,
is it hard?
It's a little bit hard, yes, because I didn't get a phone until I was 16 years old, but I have a little sister who is like, I don't know, she got a phone years ago. She's 20 years younger than me. And it's just, if we make books that are exciting and we put our heart into it, then the reader understands that and gets sucked into the book. Because the book can offer something that the phone can't, and that's just focusing on one thing, and that is the book and the world of the book. So that is something that the book has that the phone and the internet and the cartoons don't have. And that's something we have to use when we're writing, to just make a world that gets them. So yeah.
And what would you choose to do in your free time? To surf the net or to read a book?
Oh, both. And go on the internet and order books. I do a lot of that. I have like a whole wall in my house filled with books that I still haven't read. It's like I had to go to IKEA and buy a new one to put the books. So yeah.
And I have a question about your special style of writing books. How do you created this format of traveling through the pages? How do you come to this? Is it your unique style, or you saw it somewhere else and try to fill in your books?
I saw it somewhere else when I was younger. It's loosely based on a book series from America, but those books were all really short. So every page you're choosing something new, and there wasn't much of a story in it. And I wanted to take this fun form, to take a normal book and change it into a game. But I wanted to have a good story, and maybe with some characters that you've already met in other stories. And that's how I put my take on it. So it's in the base is the same, but my humor and it's much longer. I really like writing these books because there's a cliffhanger every 3 or 4 pages. Something huge or horrible or amazing is happening. And in regular books you maybe have to write half the book before something like that happens. You have to build up to it. But in this book, there's something amazing around the corner all the time. And that's really fun to write.
Do you communicate with your young readers, maybe in Iceland? Do you know what they think about your books?
I visit a lot of schools in Iceland, and because Iceland has this thing called the Christmas book flood. That means we only publish books in October and November, because there's a tradition in Iceland to give them as Christmas gifts. Everybody gets a book, and that's actually saving the Icelandic literary world, because we have this tradition. So, but that means in October and November we get like this flood of books, and then we go to the I go to the schools and I read for the kids and I make them choose, and sometimes, like the book is, sometimes it ends well and sometimes it ends horribly. Whole classes have been eaten by some monster. But like I tell them, it's your fault, it's not mine. You chose to do this. So I make them vote with raising their hands, and it's really nice to do this, because you feel what they are responding to, and always in the end I take questions and we talk about the books, and I ask them how many of them they've read and how they've done, have they survived the book or not. And one of the things that was really nice, and I didn't realize when I wrote the first book, was that this turned into something that friends were reading together in school when they had lunch break or something. They went outside with the books and were reading together and deciding together what would happen, which was really nice. And also siblings and families reading together, and that was something I didn't realize would happen. And it also really speaks to, in Iceland, to kids that really don't like reading. All of a sudden you get a book that's dangerous and you can die, or something amazing can happen, and all of a sudden you get a book that's like almost like a computer game. So that has been quite nice to
understand.
To hear that from them and from parents, that this is something that they want to read. So yeah.
And what do you think about the children in Iceland at all? What they prefer in reading? Maybe special stories about elves and trolls, or they read regular books?
We love a good troll story, of course, but also, I mean, also just some of the universal books, like Harry Potter. Harry Potter is huge in Iceland, and they just want. I've been asking them a little bit about this, and they want something in Icelandic, and they want something new and exciting, and it's our responsibility as authors, and also with the publishers, of translating, to keep up with the kids that want to read, to give them new books. So yeah, but they read all kinds. Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, you're not only a writer. What else do you do?
Yes, I'm an actor in Iceland, and I also have a TV show where I teach kids about science, and have been doing that for the past 8 years. And it's really fun and sometimes really strange. I climbed a building using only 2 vacuum cleaners, which was really dangerous, but it worked, because we did a little something. And I also do a lot of voiceover work for Icelandic cartoons. So every week I go in for 2 hours and basically scream into a microphone, because I didn't realize until I started doing this, a lot of cartoons are just people falling or running away from something, screaming. And that's that's part of what I do.
And what educational background do you have?
I have a degree in languages. I studied languages in between the ages of 16 and 20. And then I studied 4 years in Iceland, the University of Arts, the Icelandic University of Arts, for 4 years. Yeah. And after that I worked at the National Theatre for some years, and then I started writing. So yeah.
And yet one of the main directions of your work is writing books, yes?
Yes.
Do you like read books yourself, and which books do you prefer?
I love, what I've recently started doing is listening to audiobooks. And while I'm driving or doing the dishes or cleaning. I like horror stories, and I've liked horror stories since I was very young, too young maybe. And I really like artists' biographies read by themselves, by them, so they're telling their own story. I really like that. Non-fiction, yes, that's the way. Yeah. So yes, non-fiction, but I really like. Also, I read a lot of young adult books and get ideas. And yeah, Kurt Vonnegut, Stephen King. Yeah, I really like Stephen King.
And which book is your favorite?
Oh, I read a book called The Book Thief once. I really liked that book, and I thought it was so good that I'm afraid to read it again, and I think I won't read it again. But I have it at home, both in Icelandic and English. But I'm scared to read it if it's not as good as I remember. But and also the Harry Potter series.
What do you think about culture of Russia? Do you know something about it, and do you like it?
I like it. I'm learning something new every day, and it's really so different from Iceland in many ways, but alike in many ways also. And this is the second time I come here. I came here in November and went to Siberia.
Wow.
And stayed here in Moscow for a few days, and two places I wasn't sure I would ever visit in my life. So it's so fun to be back here. And now in the summertime and seeing all the, it's a completely different world. And no, it's really beautiful and yeah, and interesting. And I like the people. I really like just walking around and looking at the people.
Do you know something about Russian children's literature?
Yeah, when I was younger, I read some of Pushkin's fairy tales. Yeah. And I don't remember which stories exactly, but I remember they had this kind of feeling. It's a special, they were completely different from what we have. So that's something I remember. And when I was graduating as an actor, we did a play by no, not by Chekhov. No. I've seen a lot of Chekhov though. It's by Gogol, and we did the government inspector, and I played a judge called Lyapkin Tyapkin. Yeah, that was really fun. So we studied a lot of Russian things surrounding that production. So yeah, which was really fun.
Finally, the last question.
Yes.
Do you know any words in Russian? Maybe you can say something.
No, one word that I learned because it's so different from Icelandic, which makes it really a really cool language. It's the most typical one. Spasiba. Well, thank you. And in Icelandic, that's tak.
Thank you very much, Айвар.
Thank you.
It was nice to have an interview with you.
Same here. Thank you so much.
А похож вот наш Илья на исландского парня или не похож?
Yeah. Very beautiful. Yeah.
Tall.
Yeah, tall, beautiful, handsome. Yeah.
So beautiful.